إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، اتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، كل ضلالة في النار. As we continue the chapter, I forgot the date. As we continue the chapter, Bab ma ja'a fil dhabhi li ghayrillah, the chapter which comes in offering a sacrifice for other than Allah. As we started the chapter, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, we said the great Imam al-Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, when we were discussing this chapter, as all of the different chapters that we've been covering for the past couple of months, or more than that actually, it's all given a tafsir of Tawheed, or the tafsir, or the meaning of La ilaha illallah. There's not a chapter from the chapters that we've been covering, except all of it is given a detailed explanation of the meaning of kalimatul shahada, of the word when one testifies that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah. For everything we've been covering up to now, even including this chapter, in which we started, is given another meaning and tafsir of the meaning of La ilaha illallah. For one, when he says none has the right to be worshipped in truth except Allah, like we said, is binding upon him certain matters. So from those matters is that he has to learn all the aspects of worship in which is obligatory upon him to unify Allah Ta'ala in that particular worship. Especially in these affairs in which you find that the great Imam mentioned in this book. And each chapter that we cover is giving a tafsir of the meaning of La ilaha illallah. As you'll find that you'll find that a lot of the Muslims these days are lacking in the knowledge of these matters. And for that reason, if you are lacking in the knowledge or you are ignorant of a matter, then no doubt you are more than likely going to fall into it. If you lack knowledge in a certain matter, then more than likely you're going to subject yourself or expose yourself to falling into something that contradicts, rather, it opposes what Allah Ta'ala has commanded, which is to unify Him in His worship, especially in all these different aspects of worship. Can you share with Jamar? Share with Jamar. And Amir, the other Amir. I'm sorry, I mean to point at you. Can you share with the brother right here? Until they're able to get the books that they need. Well, no. Book over there? Yeah, that text is, you could use it temporarily. No, the two brothers here don't have a book. Jamal's going to share with him temporarily. He said Salahuddin, and brothers just get up. We could have saved this time so we can, don't worry about it. After class, inshallah, brothers, if we have another books, we could accommodate the brothers when wait till after the class. Alhamdulillah, Salahuddin. طيب. So all these chapters we've been covering, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, like we said, are all chapters giving a tafsir of the meaning of La ilaha illallah. For these matters are the most detrimental and dangerous. For verily, like we said previously, that if one was to give this aspect of worship to other than Allah, Ta'ala, it's as if one is saying when he says La ilaha illallah, meaning I unify and I single out Allah in certain affairs of worship. What's wrong? That's not it. Don't worry about Salahuddin. Just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's as if one is saying, I single out Allah in all the affairs of worship, and as if in Kitaab At-Tawheed is giving you that explanation. Like I single out Allah in what? The aspect of work, of sacrifice, or offering a sacrifice. So that is the chapter which we're covering now. So when it say La ilaha illallah, I testify that none has the right to be worshipped. And from those affairs of worship is dhabh. It's offering a sacrifice. That's from those affairs of what? Of worship. And that's the chapter which we're discussing now. We said from last class, as the great Imam had talked about his students and what happened with his students that we talked about previously on another occasion. Well, we said that the great Imam, when he finished this book, Kitaab At-Tawheed, we talked about what happened where one, meaning amongst his people at that particular time, had offered a sacrifice for other than Allah. Someone amongst the people in that area that he was in at the current time offered a sacrifice for other than Allah. Until, at first when he told his students, of course, that someone slaughtered for other than Allah, until, like we said, the students had no reaction. That reaction wasn't as if nothing happened. You know, they probably said, A'udhu Billah, it's polytheism, it's idolatry, astaghfirullah, to relate. Until the great Imam also said to the students, then it was relayed to me that someone rather was intimate with his mother. That he was intimate with his own mother. And at that time, the students became very enthusiastic. A'udhu Billah, astaghfirullah, tubi ilayh. Who would do that? Who would do such an erroneous, horrific, disgusting thing? Who would do that? And that the great Imam, before he tested them with this, he said, we're going to go over Kitaab At-Tawheed. After they finished, he said, Sheikh, we finished the book. We don't need Kitaab At-Tawheed. We filled ourselves up, Kitaab At-Tawheed. We're done with Kitaab At-Tawheed. Why we need to learn Tawheed again? Until he tested them with the same test I gave everyone. When it was said that he offered for other than, when it was slaughter or offer a sacrifice for other than Allah, there wasn't any reaction. But in contrast to when he gave the example of one was intimate with his own mother, then everyone became very enthusiastic and everyone became very active and their feelings and their emotions took over, a'udhu billah, to the end of it. So he said, for that reason we need to go over it again. Because you still don't understand the Tawheed. Rather, it was incumbent upon a person when they hear that one should slaughter for other, when they heard that Allah was committed, or polytheism was set up partners with him in his worship, whereas that sacrifice was offered for other than him, that should have been your reaction in regards to what happened when one was intimate with his own mother. The reaction when you hear that Allah was committed along, or was committed, polytheism, and one set up partners with him in his worship, that is the most evilest of all matters. And the most ugliest, the most uglified, the most vilified of all affairs. No matter what it is. For ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, we know, as it comes in the Sahih, which is al-Bukhari, what happened to the man that he slaughtered 100 people? Is it slaughtering worse than being intimate with somebody with their own mother? Someone took the life of a person. One being intimate with his own mother and killing, taking someone's life worse than that? Huh? And not only that, he killed 100. That's worse than homosexuality. That is worse than one being intimate with his mother, even though those affairs are very disgusting and they are high in its magnitude as far as the level of it, no doubt. It's a major sin. But however, in the magnitude of the sins in comparison to polytheism, then it is no There's no comparison. At the end of the day, the hadith of Bukhari, and nobody's condoning that one kill at all. Because we know in the hadith of Bukhari, when the Prophet ﷺ informed about the man from Bani Israel, that when he died, the angels of punishment came to take his soul. The angels of punishment came to take his soul. So that's to clearly show that what? That this affair of killing and murder and bloodshed and corruption in the earth is unacceptable. To the point where the angels of punishment comes to take you. So, but however, the point of the matter is we're trying to show the magnitude of sin in regards to these matters, that polytheism was of a whole higher level. To the point in the hadith which al-Bukhari with a man who killed 100 people, where was his abode at the end? Where was his abode? 100. He killed 100. It says 99 started off, but he completed 100. Where was his abode, everyone? Paradise. Why? Because he wanted to make that sincere repentance, which he left off that land in which corruption was being, and that pillage and corruption was being done. He left it off because he sincerely wanted to what? Make tawbah to his Lord, because he knew he was wrong. He knew he was what? Absolutely wrong. Until, as we know, he went to the jahil, abid. As he went to the one who was ignorant, but he was a what? A worshiper, which is to show the destructive, how the advice of the one who's jahil, of ignorant, even though he might be a worshiper, but he still lacked knowledge. That he gave him some instructions that were totally what? Incorrect. He said, there's no tawbah for you. Until he killed him and he completed 100. And then he went to an alim who was the one who possessed knowledge. And he said, وَمَا يَحُولُ بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَ التَّوْبَةِ. He says, what is going to be stop between you and making tawbah? Except that you went to that land, that you have to leave off the land that you're in of corruption and evil, and embark upon a land in which is what? You escape that land that you were in, embark upon that land, which will be as a result of it, inshallah, that your tawbah will be accepted. And that man went out towards that land until he died in the road, as we know to the end of the narration. But the point of the matter, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, Allah Ta'ala still what? Overlooked it. Even though it was a great sin of magnitude. It was tremendous. Killed 100 people unjustly. 100? That's worse than what? Homosexuality. That's worse than what? Being intimate with somebody's mother. Somebody took 100 people's lives, took their life. It's not worse than homosexuality? Hasha wa kalla. Bala. Of course it's worse than homosexuality. These homosexuality not taking somebody's life, doing something unacceptable, nasty, and filthy. But this man took 100 people's lives. So it's to show, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, that these affairs of Kitaab At-Tawheed is the most important. To the point where, if this is the case, and I said this yesterday in Wednesday in another class, if this is the point where even the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab, and this took place with his students, to the point where they had to start it all over again, because to the point they finished and they had to start all over again, what about those who do not teach this book at all to their community? If they were in need, and that was him with his students, the author of this book, he says, you still didn't understand Tawheed, even though we finished it. Now we got to go over it again. What about people who don't even teach it to their communities at all? And don't focus on these matters and make it their primary what? Focus. To the point where one teaches it over and over again. And I said this to the people before, as walillahi alhamd wal minna, even when I was in Al-Hadith in Southwest Philadelphia, as we taught this book about 3 times. It was one, we finished it. It took about about 2 years almost for me to finish it. Then I did it in the khutbah every week till we finished it. Then I did it again. And wallahi, you've seen the change in the community. The change in the community for a better direction as far as in their religion, not in their worldly matters, in their affairs of their religion, which is the most important. You start seeing a very drastic change in the people. An effect of, and that's not ascribing that to myself because I'm no one. I'm talking about the effects of Tawheed still has the effect on that part of that city to this day. To this day. And it played a tremendous contribution in aiding the da'wah in Philadelphia. To the point even people now all over the country, the main da'wah is in Philadelphia. No one can deny the reality of it except a person who's mukabir or mutakabbir, or he has something in his chest for the people or for the Salafis. But the reality is everybody knows the dawah is strong in Philadelphia. There is no getting around it. That it is what it is. For verily we've seen the number of what? And we're not just saying as far as the numbers. We're talking about the quality of the people too. It started what? Changing when you seen the focus and the primary focus being upon monotheism, and pounding the people with it, and pounding them with it, and pounding them with it, and pounding them with it, until you eventually start seeing the effects of it upon the people. Now Shaitan has brought something else down there. We're talking about what happened with Ali Davis and all those other knuckleheads. But that is now Shaitan sent someone to now put some blackness over it now. It's starting to change a bit. But the point I'm trying to say is that when you've seen how the people were completing this book over and over again, you started seeing the effects. The people really started taking heed and started showing the great importance of it. And there's no way that you get around these affairs in which you'll find that if you see that as a da'i and as dawah and aiding the people and rectifying them correctly, will always have to be based upon this. If not, then you're not building the people upon a correct foundation. You're just basically building them upon air. Basically building them upon or nurturing them upon some type of methodology which is totally incorrect. Which will be as a result of it, the people will either deviate, or a lot of them you'll find that those communities that have not cared about these matters, if you listen to how they speak statements of kufr, even speak statements of shirk, even find demeaning statements, belittling the Kitaab and Sunnah, even though they say they're Muslim. You'll find it on the tongues of their people if you're around, and you'll be like, whoa, you guys say you're Muslim. Do you ever study your fundamentals? Because you're uttering statements of disbelief. You're uttering statements of that's totally will render your Islam nullified. If you go to those communities that have not cared about those affairs, and the du'at that didn't care about these matters, and if you listen to the tongues of those people that go to those particular places, you'll find that they're making statements of kufr, shirk, and also demeaning the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, saying, but you know, akhi, I know what the message of Allah did, but I'm black. And you know, you have to realize the black man was to the end of it. You'll find they make those type of statements. That's why they had not be fundamentally what? Well grounded correctly. Yes, the black man has been oppressed here in this country, but now, we don't now try to combat a wrong with another wrong. You don't combat batil with batil. You don't combat foolishness and falsehood with more foolishness and falsehood. One wrong doesn't make it wrong, it doesn't make it right. So you go from one extreme to another extreme, and you're still misguiding the people, even in the name of so-called combating racism. Combating racism is calling the people to monotheism and doing exactly how the Messenger of Allah step by step gave the people of what they needed in their nourishment and their cultivation to properly upright human beings, to unify everyone, no matter what their ethnicity is, color is, background, whatever. As that had actualized during the next time of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, with all of the people who are from different nationalities and backgrounds. As I talked about, Suhaib al-Rumi, radiyallahu anhu, was from Rome. He was a Sahabi. He was from Rome. Salman al-Farisi was from where? He was Persian. Salman al-Farisi was Persian. Suhaib al-Rumi was Roman. He was from Rome. Rumi. Bilal was what? He was black. And the message of Allah united all of them upon one belief. And when the aqeedah, and the list goes on and on and on and on, talking about the different ethnicities and background that they came from. But what's correct to show and nurture the people correctly is to start how the message of Allah started with. And eventually, as you keep knocking on the door of Tawheed with Allah, Allah eventually will start giving that community tawfiq. You keep knocking on that door, keep knocking. Oh Allah, we're doing what's correct, inshallah. We're doing what we're supposed to do as far as changing the communities for a better direction. Eventually, Allah, bi'idhnillah, will start giving the barakah and will give the tawfiq to the community. But they have to stay steadfast upon what we're discussing now. For we said and discussed, ya ma'ish al-ikhwa, as you notice the great Imam, he says, as it comes in, ma ja'a fi al-dhabhi li ghayrillah, what comes in putting forth a sacrifice for other than Allah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. As we discussed, as we discussed the different types of dhaba'ih, we said number one, or the first category from last lesson, we said what, everyone? It's the first type, which is of shirk. For verily the origin, number one, in regards to putting forth a sacrifice, as we said, the first category is that which is offered as a sacrifice, ta'ziman. Ta'ziman wa taqarruban. Of drawing close to Allah and magnifying magnifying something that is other than Allah. You wrote this down in your books last class, you two, both of you. I don't think you need to write it down again. It's already written in your book, right? I think you already wrote it down. It should be already down. The first thing is that one will sacrifice out of drawing close and glorifying or magnifying that thing. Meaning, other than Allah, from the creation. And like we talked about last class, we said it doesn't matter if there's malakun muqarrab wala nabiyyun mursal. It doesn't matter whether he was salih or talih. It doesn't matter whether the person is righteous or wretched. For verily, it does not justify, even if the sacrifice was offered to someone who's close to Allah, such as the angels or from the anbiya or the rusul or the messengers of the prophets. All of it is still what? Polytheism. And if one was to do that, as we know, then he has nullified his Islam. His Islam is done, is nullified. That nullifies your religion totally. If you die upon that, and you die in that state, if you meet Allah ta'ala upon that, you have met Allah in the most evil state that a human being can meet his Lord. The state of polytheism is meeting Allah in the most evilest of affairs, an evilest state. There's no evil state than worse than meeting Allah upon polytheism. That is the most evilest of affairs that any human being can meet his Lord in. For that, what it says in the first category, that one, that he offers that sacrifice ta'ziman wa taqarruban, out of drawing close and magnifying, glorifying that thing. For that thing that's offered to other than Allah, we said last class that this is what? Polytheism. Then you have that it was what is offered as a sacrifice from the aspect of what they call al-farah wal-ikram, out of showing rejoicement and generosity and showing respect and honor to someone. But it's not for the niyyah of what, everyone? It's not for the niyyah of drawing close to that person or that thing. But a guest you haven't seen in 10 years, he steps off the airplane, steps out of the car, and out of rejoicement and honoring your guests and being hospitable, you want to what? Slaughter some meat for your guests or for them, out of being generous to the end of it. Is that considered shirk? As we said, that's not considered polytheism. Rather, it can be in certain instances something that's either what? Highly recommended, or it could be wajib in certain instances. Because we know that being hospitable to your guests is an affair which is obligatory. It's not an affair that's optional. It's an affair that's obligatory. طيب. So based upon that, we said, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, those are the two categories. What is intended by what the great Imam mentioned in this chapter is what is the first one, which is polytheism, which is done out of ta'zim wa taqarrub. What the Imam had mentioned of what? Of drawing close or sacrificing for other than Allah out of magnification, glorification, or drawing close to that thing. No matter who it is. It doesn't matter what is a human being, rock, tree, sun, the moon, the stars, whatever it is and whoever it is. And it doesn't matter whether he's salih or talih. It doesn't matter whether he's righteous or wretched. And like we said, the fact that it will be a prophet or angel does not justify it. Just because one is being sacrificed, for example, for one of these righteous people, does not justify it, still considered polytheism. As we go on to mention, we said last class, we also talked about the Ma'ashal Ikhwani ayah, where you'll find that the great Imam, that he lays down the title, then after that, what does he do? He always follows it up with the dalil, a dalil from Kitaab and Sunnah. He offers the dalil from Kitaab and Sunnah. For you'll find that this pattern is likewise what Ahl Sunnah is upon in all of their matters. And I told our two brothers here that our religion is not based upon how we feel. What we are established and what we are upon. of the truth is always based upon knowledge and authentic evidences and proofs and knowledge. Never upon how we feel. What my gut feeling says or what I feel today. Because feelings are, as Ibn Uthaymin mentions, it says, Al-awatif awasif. إذا لم تتقيد بالشرع. That feelings could be storms if they're not being restricted and controlled by the Kitaab and Sunnah, meaning by the dalil, by the evidences and proofs. So what we are upon is of evidences and proofs all the time. And that is what we base our religion upon, not upon how we feel. If that was the case, then we would be what? Jews and Christians. Because everything they say is, I feel. I feel that this is right. I feel this is where I'm supposed to be. I feel that this is what we're saying and what we're doing is right. I feel this. I feel that. I feel, to the end of it. It's not based upon concrete, authentic evidences and proofs. It's based upon how you feel. How you feel today is one way, and how you feel tomorrow is another. That's why what we are upon is of concrete, firm evidences and proofs, without any shadow of a doubt. And like we talked about, the Kitaab and Sunnah has been protected from mankind tampering with it, and it will remain like that until Allah Ta'ala will remove it at the end of the last days, and also likewise when He removes it by the death of the ulama. For that reason, everything stays intact, and we'll discuss this on a later occasion, how what is in the Quran is authentic evidence and proofs in which no man can tamper with. That's the reason why that is our one of our main sources of what we based our ilm upon. Because no one can tamper with the book. And if something hasn't been tampered with, it's pure revelation, so why don't we take from it? Why would we want to take from a book that has been tampered with, and even the non-Muslims themselves say that they tamper with it? So why would I want to take a book, and with common sense of 1, 2, 3, what an oxymoron would know? Now, of course, I'm going to take from a book that's pure what? Absolute, authentic what? Proofs and evidences. In contrast, I will leave off a book that you even say yourself has been tampered with. Which one will I take? The book that hasn't been tampered with. And they'll ask you, what's your proof? Okay, bring a Quran from here from America. Bring from China. Bring one from Africa. Bring one from the Hawaii or the Hawaiian Islands. Bring it from the four corners of the North Pole if you want. Put them in front of each other. It's the exact same one. Because nobody can tamper with it. So why not what I take from that book, and I know that's concrete proof and evidence that Allah has sent down, that He Himself said that mankind can't tamper with. And He said that He challenged them to even bring just one ayah similar to it, to the end of it. And that's the reason why we use these as evidences and proofs, because they're concrete evidences and proofs. And not only that, Allah has also protected the Kitaab and the authentic Sunnah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He's protected that likewise. That's the reason why the science of Hadith and Jarh wa Ta'dil was made, in order to preserve and protect the Sunnah from those who try to come and corrupt it. And not only did Allah protect the religion by preserving His book and the authentic prophetic Sunnah of His messenger, also Allah Ta'ala preserved the meaning of it. So that's another ni'mah that a lot of people don't realize. The Kitab, the authentic Sunnah, and the interpretation has been preserved likewise. So there cannot be one to say, I understand it this way, or I interpret this verse to mean this way. All of that, Allah removed that from this ummah. So they wouldn't differ in regards to the usul, the foundations of the religion. He removed all that from what happened to the previous nations and bestowed upon this nation His tremendous favor by preserving His book, His authentic, prophetic Sunnah of His messenger, and the interpretation and the meaning of it has been preserved. And that will always stay intact only until what Allah Ta'ala wants to remove it from the earth in the last days and times. And also likewise by the death of the ulama. So you'll find from the book in which the great Imam that he puts aside, his book, he put in the ayah, he says, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين. He says, say verily my salah, verily my prayer and my sacrifice, and my life and my death is for Allah, Rabbul Alameen. As we know, Allah Ta'ala says, say Muhammad, Qul. However, the addressment is for all the ummah. It's generally for all, for everyone. So even though the ayat was revealed in regards to addressing the message of Allah, but we know the addressment generally is for all of the ummah. All of those who follow the message of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We talked about last lesson, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, in regards to salati wa nusuki. My salah. My salah and my nusuk, when that is the point of reference in the ayah of you find why the great Imam used this ayah and put it under the heading of the chapter. Because it says nusuki, meaning my sacrifice. What I put forth and what I offer to draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by that sacrifice. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? By that sacrifice. As we know, and we'll talk about inshallah, that those sacrifices is upon three categories, which we'll talk about. As we know, we have the adahi, we have the hadaya, and we also have the aqa'iq. This we'll discuss inshallah. As those are the three categories of sacrifice, of what one offers as a sacrifice for Allah. For the first category is al-adahi, what we slaughter on the day of the Eid, which will, inshallah, will be approximately after another month. I don't know if we start, I think we're starting at Dhul Qi'dah now. Or maybe about tonight or tomorrow. Dhul Qi'dah, and then we have Dhul Hijjah. But anyway, which the Eid will be in approximately about 1 month and a week, or some days. And which will be Eid al-Adha. So we'll do Eid al-Adha for those who have the what? The ability to slaughter, and they have the monetary ability to slaughter on the day of the Eid. Then they offer that likewise for Allah ta'ala, and that's what they call al-adahi, what is done on the day of the Eid, Eid al-Adha. Then you have the second category, which is done what they call al-hadaya, meaning al-hadi, of what the people, what they offer as far as for umrah, when they make tamattu', or when they fall into what they call ihsar. I got to start explaining ihsar. For the other category, hadaya breaks down to three categories. Hadaya breaks down to three categories. You have that which is done during the time of tamattu', when a person performs hajj. And we know hajj likewise is of three categories. You have what we know, tamattu', we have qiran, and we have ifrad. What we're discussing now is in regards to hajj is tamattu'. That is the greatest ritual of hajj that one can perform, where he combines the umrah and hajj together. And he stays halal in Mecca for a certain period of days. Then when the time of hajj and the days start, he can put his ihram on and go on. This is not the time to talk about hajj, not now, unless you're going to make hajj this year. But at any rate, for verily, Allah Ta'ala mentions Surah Al-Hajj, that the hadiyah or the hadaya is from those things that one has to do during the time of hajj. As Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hajj, فَمَنْ تَمَتَّعَ بِالْعُمْرَةِ إِلَى الْحَجِّ فَمَا اسْتَيْسَرَ مِنَ الْهَدِي. Meaning from the hadaya. فَمَنْ تَمَتَّعَ يعني تَمَتُّعَ فَمَنْ تَمَتَّعَ بِالْعُمْرَةِ إِلَى الْحَجِّ فَمَا اسْتَيْسَرَ مِنَ الْهَدِي. So whoever who's making tamattu', notice Allah Ta'ala says, بِالْعُمْرَةِ إِلَى الْحَجِّ. Making umrah, being halal in Mecca for a period of days, then during the time, on the 8th day of the Hijjah, starting to make hajj, فَمَا اسْتَيْسَرَ مِنَ الْهَدِي. Then what has been facilitated for him of that slaughtering or that sacrifice. So when a person, we know from the pillars or from the rituals of hajj, is what everyone, he has to offer what? He has to offer a sacrifice. So that's the second category. The first one is al-adha. Then you have the second one, which is what? Al-hadaya. That breaks down into three categories. You have, like we said, in regards to what? Tamattu'. Then you have the second thing from when a person, if he cuts his hair. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, everyone. The second one is when he falls into what they call ihsar, meaning he's not able to complete his hajj or his umrah. Ihsar, the person is muhsar. فَإِنْ أُحْصِرْتُمْ فَمَا اسْتَيْسَرَ مِنَ الْهَدِي. Al-ihsar meaning that something happened to you. This right here shows how complete our religion is. How Allah Ta'ala made everything complete. And this also shows that this is perfectly was revealed by someone who is all knowing and all knowledgeable and all aware. So Allah made The category, the first one is what? Tamattu'. Then you have what? The second one of the second, if you want to say letter B of the second category, which is hadaya, if you want to put that under there, is ihsar. Ihsar is when you're not able to complete umrah or hajj. Something happens, a car accident, something happened, you might have you might have passed out, something might have happened, very detrimental to the point where it prohibits you or where it holds you back, or it's a hindrance from you completing your what? Your rituals of hajj and umrah. So when you're not able now, something of ihsar, as the ulama they mentioned about the meaning of ihsar, is that something that, the meaning of ihsar means something that made you to discontinue what you're doing. When you now fall into ihsar, Allah Ta'ala says in His book in Surah Al-Hajj again, فَإِنْ أُحْصِرْتُمْ من الإحصار من الإحصار فَإِنْ أُحْصِرْتُمْ فَمَا اسْتَيْسَرَ مِنَ الْهَدِيِ. So now you've been what? You're not allowed to discontinue your worship or what have you. Then now one likewise has to what? Put forth a hadiyah or a hadi, meaning a sacrifice for Allah Ta'ala. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? This is done. I don't want to give you details. This is too many details. Let me keep it summarized. There's too many details. You gotta keep it summarized. Let's talk about Tawheed and Shirk. Branches off in Hajj. Tayyib. In fact, brothers, let's keep it general. I want to keep it generally. Anyway, so you had the first, you had the Eid al-Adha. Then you have al-Hadaya. Then you have, because I don't want to, just too many details. Then you have the third category, which everyone already knows, which is the aqiqah. One, what he wants to slaughter. 4, when he has a what? When he has a child. We know it's 2 for what? 2 for a boy and what? 1 for the girl. And he cuts the hair, even if it's male and female. Both. A lot of people say, no, it's for the male. No, it's for the female too. Yeah. Yes, for the female too. Cut the hair of the male and female. A lot of people say, no, it's just for the male. No. When they're an infant. And you name them on the 8th day. Then they name on the what? The 8th day. Anyway, it's better to leave it off because we know that the hair in which the Prophet ﷺ said, take the filth off the baby, meaning of what was left of the remnants of shaitan, of what was considered the remnants of what? Of the baby affected. He says, take the khubth off the what? Off the baby's head. Now, to take the hair off it. And alhamdulillah, by the fadl of Allah, as Ibn al-Qayyim even mentions some of the benefits of it, when you cut it, the hair comes back stronger and better. So women need to stop being so emotional. Oh, you cut my baby's hair off. No, it grows back even stronger and better. That's even being witnessed when I cut my daughter's hair this year. Came back totally strong. Strong and better and more beautiful. If you obey and do the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah and put the sunnah before your feelings. But at any rate, those are the 3 categories of what? When one sacrifices and offers. Usually. In what? And those affairs of ibadah. So during the time of Hajj, the time of Eid al-Adha, and also during the time of Hajj, and also during the time of what? Also during the time of the Aqiqah. Just to keep it summarized and concise. I don't want to keep getting more details. Keep it summarized and concise. Tayyib. So now, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, those affairs is to show that when one sacrifices, that all of them are supposed to be for Allah Ta'ala. And if it's done for other than Allah, then not only does one fall into polytheism, but there's other ahkam that necessitates. If one was to offer that meat to other than Allah, which is like we said, first, number 1 is polytheism, and then secondly, that meat becomes unlawful. That meat, which was sacrificed for other than Allah, is not permissible for one to what? To eat it. For that reason, like we said, there's other ahkam we have to discuss right now, but that's from them. So, to start off the chapter, in which it says, say that my salah, and my nusuk, and my life and my death, is all for Allah Ta'ala. What did we say last class, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa? Notice that Allah Ta'ala in so many ayat in His book. And this is a beautiful thing to know this qa'idah. In Sahih Ta'bir, I don't want to call it qa'idah, but we will say that is what the ulama have mentioned out of tatabbu' wal istiqra', of their investigation and scrutinizing the text. You will never find an ayah where Allah talks about something He does of His actions, except, like we talked about before, His actions are what, everyone? Tawheed Rububiyyah. Tawheed Ar-Rububiyyah. Rububiyyah. The Tawheed of Lordship. And Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in his book called Tawheed al-Ma'rifah wal-Ithbat. Many read. Yeah. Tawheed Ar-Rububiyyah. Tawheed Ar-Rububiyyah is mentioning Allah Ta'ala's actions. When you see Tawheed Ar-Rububiyyah, Allah Ta'ala is trying to bring you back to an affair of what? Of something else that is more, that is the reason why He's mentioning Tawheed Ar-Rububiyyah. Is He's establishing Tawheed Al-Uluhiyyah. For verily, Tawheed Ar-Rububiyyah is mentioned in the Quran to establish upon the creation an affair, which is al-ibadah, which is to worship Him alone. So many ayats you'll find in the same context, Allah will mention Tawheed Ar-Rububiyyah maybe 4 or 5, 6 times. Sometimes some contexts is 4 times, some contexts is 5 times, some is 6. In which Allah will mention Tawheed Ar-Rububiyyah. والتوحيد الربوبية يذكر في القرآن من إقامة الحجة على الخلق أنه هو المستحق وهو الذي يستحق تبارك وتعالى أن يفرد بالعبادة. فما يذكر توحيد الربوبية إلا من باب إقامة الحجة على الخلق أنه هو الذي يستحق العبادة وحده لا شريك له. That Allah تبارك وتعالى mentioned توحيد الربوبية in His book only to establish upon the creation that He deserves to be worshipped. From the examples of that, as I said last, even I said that in the khutbah today. Allah Ta'ala talked about how all the ma'budat is going to free itself from them on the day of resurrection. Everything that's worshipped other than Allah is going to come on the day of resurrection and turn against its worshippers and deny that they were worshiping them. Rather, you guys were worshiping the jinn and the shaitan. You wasn't worshiping us. They're going to all come and they're going to say that. And they're going to deny and reject their worship to the point where even shaitan himself, we're not talking about the white man, we're talking about the unseen devil, shaitan. The shaitan himself is also going to deny and reject their worship of him. And to the point where he's going to even affirm that you were supposed to be performing tawheed of Allah. As we discussed this last class, shaitan, وقال الشيطان لما قضي الأمر سورة إبراهيم وقال الشيطان لما قضي الأمر إن الله وعدكم وعد الحق ووعدتكم فأخلفتكم وما كان لي عليكم بسلطان إلا أن دعوتكم فاستجبتم لي فلا تلوموني ولوموا أنفسكم ما أنا بمصرخكم وما أنتم بمصرخي إني كفرت بما أشركتموني من قبل إن الظالمين لهم عذاب أليم. The shaitan was a Surah Ibrahim, where Allah says the shaitan, when the affair has been concluded, verily Allah promised you the promise of truth. That if you was to worship Him alone and do what He had sent down to His messenger, you will enter paradise. I promised you a promise, and I betray that promise. وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ. I had no power over you except I called you, you answered me. Don't blame me, blame yourselves. I cannot save you, you cannot save me. So that's a proof, clear proof to show also likewise, brothers and sisters, what? Shaitan fears Allah. Shaitan is no nonsense like the Christians say there's a compete between God and the devil. No, Allah can destroy the devil in a blink of faster than whatever. The shaitan himself is afraid of Allah. And he's going to admit this on the day of resurrection. He says, I'll portray my promise. You can't save me, I can't save you. So that means that what? Shaitan himself fears Allah. I disbelieve in what you set up with Allah and partners along with Allah, with me. So what is he affirming? Tawheed. That Tawheed was the truth. You're supposed to unify Allah in His worship. So he's going to disregard and reject the people what? Worshiping Him. Getting back to the ayah, as we talked about Tawheed al-Rububiyyah now. The same ayah that we mentioned in Surah Yunus, Allah mentioned Tawheed al-Rububiyyah about 6 times in the ayah. 6. In Surah Yunus. After the story where He says of all the ma'budat will flip against them on the day of resurrection, Of what? Of rocks, trees, Jesus, the son of Mary, you name it. Uzair, who the Jews say that was the son of Allah. All of them are going to free themselves from them being what? Worship. And they're going to deny it and flip against the people who used to worship them in this world. Listen to the ayah of Allah. So Allah in that ayah is establishing what? Tawheedul uluhiyyah. So they should be what? He's the one that deserves to be worshipped. As it says in that ayah. It says, يَوْمَ نَحْشُرُهُمْ جَمِيعًا ثُمَّ نَقُولُ لِلَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا مَكَّانَكُمْ أَنْتُمْ شُرَكَاءَكُمْ فَزَيَّنَّا بَيْنَهُمْ وقال شركاؤهم ما كنتم إيانا تعبدون فكفى بالله شهيدا بيننا وبينكم إن كنا عن عبادتكم لغافلين هنالك تبلو كل نفس ما أسلفت وردوا إلى الله مولاهم الحق وضل عنهم ما كانوا يفترون. The part of the ayah, Allah Ta'ala has established that He will want, laying down that He was the one that deserved to be worshipped. If you notice in the ayah Surah Yunus, it says, هُنَالِكَ تَبْلُو كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا أَسْلَفَتْ. He said that every soul will be put to test what it did in this world. It says tablu, meaning from baliya or ibtila. Every trial will be put, every person will be put to test of what it put forth, of worship, everything, creed, belief, you name it. طيب, there's another recitation that Ibn Kathir and Imam al-Baghawi mentioned in his tafsir. They say, هُنَالِكَ تَتْلُو كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا أَسْلَفَتْ. Tatlu. He says that every soul also likewise. And another, so you have one qira'ah which is in the Mus'haf al-Hafs, recitation of Hafs, where everyone reads. Tablu. That's what it says in the ayah. Every trial will be put to test of what it done in this world. There's another recitation that Ibn Kathir and also Imam Baghawi mentions. He says, هُنَالِكَ تَتْلُو كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا أَسْلَفَتْ. He said, for every soul will follow what it used to worship in this world. And that's the meaning of tetlu. Meaning as a result of it, when they follow it, it will fall and they will fall to the pit of hell. As a result of them what? Worshipping something other than Allah. So tetlu here meaning coming from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and also the hadith of Abu Hurairah, and the tremendous hadith, even the takfiris talk about the imam of this time, the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Tremendous hadith. That hadith where it says that it will be announced on the day of resurrection, لِتَتْبَعْ كُلُّ أُمَّةٍ مَا كَانَتْ تَعْبُدْ. Let every ummah follow what it used to worship in this world. So based upon that recitation of that ayah where it says هُنَالِكَ تَتْلُو كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا أَسْلَفَتْ. That every soul will follow what it used to worship in this dunya. Until if you complete the ayah, Surah Yunus, it says, وَضَلَّ عَنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَفْتَرُونَ. He says everything that they used to worship will go astray from them, of what they used to fabricate and lie in this world, by associating them with partners along with Allah, or worshiping them wholeheartedly and independently from Allah. Until now, the point of why I'm mentioning this ayah, notice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for those who understand, and I know some of the brothers will understand this. Listen to this. After Allah establishes His ibadah, now listen to this, and I'm going to count how many times Tawheed al-Rububiyyah was mentioned. قُلْ مَنْ يَرْزُقُكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Number one. مَنْ يَرْزُقُكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ أَمَّنْ يَمْلِكُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَمَنْ يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَيُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ فَسَيَقُولُونَ اللَّهُ قُلْ أَفَلَا تَتَّقُونَ ذَلِكُمُ اللَّهُ رَبُّكُمْ رُبُوبِيَّةٌ رَبُّكُمُ الْحَقُّ فماذا بعد الحق إلا الضلال فأنا تصرفون وكذلك حقت كلمة ربك على الذين فسقوا أنهم لا يؤمنون قل هل من شركائكم من يبدأ الخلق ثم يعيده قل الله يبدأ الخلق ثم يعيده فأنا توفكون هل من شركائكم من يهدي إلى الحق قل الله يهدي للحق أفمن يهدي إلى الحق أحق أن يتبع أما لا يهدي إلا أن يهدى فما لكم كيف تحكمون وما يتبع أكثرهم إلا الظن وإن الظن لا يغني من الحق شيئا. الله أكبر. Over 7 times maybe of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. All in one context. 7 times. 7 examples. All for what? Well, I was just mentioned, I'll translate it. Excuse me, go back again. Go back to the ayah. Under the one about the ibadah. مَنْ يَرْزُقُكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Who provides you from the heaven and earth? Huh? Which category, Tawheed? Who provides for you the heavens and the earth? Who owns the hearing and the sight? Which category? Who will extract the life from death? Which category? Who will extract life from death, and who will extract life from death and death from life? If you notice in the context, it's all mentioned correctly. Why did Allah specifically start extracting life from death? In order to establish the day of resurrection. He started off with that first because everyone's living right now. So when you're put to death, you're going to be brought back to what? Life. So it says, if you ponder on it, you know that there's another stage after death, which Allah says. Then Allah says, after that, the opposite. Then He goes back. فَمَنْ يُخْرِجُ الْمَيَّةَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ وَيُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ. Who will bring the life out of the dead? وَيُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَيُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ. Who will bring out the what? Who will bring out and do the opposite, which is what? Who can now bring the life out of what? The opposite. Man, I'm getting mixed up in the ayah. Exactly. So now, how many ayahs have been seen meanings of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah so far? 4. ذَلِكُمُ اللَّهُ رَبُّكُمُ الْحَقِّ. Rabbukum. When you hear Rabbukum, as automatically Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. طيب. Who can start the creation? Who who was the originator of starting the creation? Then He's going to repeat it again. What Tawheed? Which category? Is it can your partners, can they start the first and originate creation? Rather, they say that Allah Ta'ala, the mushrikeen says that Allah Ta'ala is the one that started creation, He will repeat it. He says, so how are you being taken away from the truth? Is it from your partners who you associate along with Allah can guide to the truth? Rather, they say Allah Ta'ala is the one that guides to the truth. Is the one who can guide to the truth more deserving that He be followed? Except the ones, إِلَّا أَن يُتَّبَعَ أَن يُتَّبَعَ إِلَّا أَن يَهْدِي مَن يُهْدَى. Except the one who can guide it, who needs to be guided. Meaning the one who guides, the one who needs to be guided. So all that is example about maybe 6 or 7 times of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah in one context. So Allah Ta'ala is coming at the minds of the mushrikeen during the time of the Prophet ﷺ in order to establish what? That He's the one that deserves to be worshipped. So now everything I just said for the past 10 minutes, apply it to these ayah. Salati, my worship or my salat, my sacrifice. Which category of Tawheed is that? That's the ibadah. Why? Last 2. My life, my death. Which category of Tawheed is that? Rububiyyah. Rububiyyah. The salah and the nusuk. Whose actions are who? Performing prayer, performing sacrifice. Whose actions is that? Slave. My life and my death. Who's the one that gives life and death? Allah. That's how it's Tawheed wa Rububiyyah. So Allah mentions Tawheed al-Rububiyyah in order to establish what? Uluhiyyah. That's all throughout the Quran. All throughout the Quran. The most despicable, most evilest of all matters is how can you come at a person now who's misguided in Tawheed al-Rububiyyah? Because Allah Ta'ala was coming at the polytheists. They knew this affair. That's why it says in the ayah, قُلْ هَلْ مِنْ شُرَكَائِكُمْ. Say is it from your idolatry or idols that you used to worship that could do such and such? Because Allah already knew that they what? That's what it says. He says, say such and such. They will say such and such. So Allah knew in their minds, they already knew about Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, the polytheists. How you now will do what a Muslim now is misguided in this affair? such as the Shia, who they say, and from those who are upon and engrossed in the highest level of Sufiya, who say that the awliya of Allah, so-called, they can create in the wombs of the women. That's dalal and Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Or that is from the Imamiyya Ithna Ashariya, from those 12 Imams that can conduct in the existence of creation, which is dalal and misguidance and Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. What are you going to do with a Muslim now he's misguided in that affair? When Allah Ta'ala established this as a proof against those who disbelieve, so in order to show that he's the one that deserves to be worshipped, that's something even more uglier and more vilified and disgusting. And this is the i'tiqad of some of the Muslims out there, of something of the mushrikeen didn't even fall into. Misguided in the affair of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah is something that is extremely strange, and to call to it. And this is some of the Muslims in the state, of some of the Muslims these days, of those who are upon Shi'iyya and Sufiyya. And like I said on many occasions, know for sure that Sufiyya is derived from Shi'iyya, from the Rafidiyya. It's derived from Rafid. It's taken from Shia and Rafid. What the Sufiyas are practicing upon, the grave worshiping, is taken from the Shia. You will never find of those who engrossed inside of Sufiyya, except that they took a lot of their rituals and their practices from Rafid. From their what? From the Shia. And they misguided in that affair because they took their knowledge from them. Grave worshiping was started by the Shia, and the Sufis adopted it from them. As you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam mentions in Minhaj. You guys are them taking me off of what I'm going to talk about. Tayyib. You understand, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? Stick to it. Tayyib. So it says now, Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah is always mentioned in the Quran in order to establish upon the creation that he's the one that deserves to be worshipped. There's not an ayah you'll find that Allah mentions about Rabb, or he's the one that sends down the rain. He's the one that gives provisions. He's the one that gives life to death, or death to life to the end of it. All those are his acts. Or he's the one that owns the sight, the seeing, the hearing. He's the one that owns it. That's still Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Because al-mulk lillah. Because everything in this existence is for Allah. He owns it. No one else owns it except him, tabarak wa ta'ala. So al-mulk is also part of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Is it clear, everyone, what I'm saying? And it's established in the ayat. We have so many ayats and I don't even want to, that's just one example. Anyway. So Allah says in the ayah, لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين. Allah Ta'ala also says in his book, he says that all of that, my sacrifice, my salat, my nusuk, my mahyaya, mamati is for Allah. Meaning he's the only one that deserves that. He's the only one that deserves that. He has no partner. When you see the ayat when it says he has no partner, tabaraka wa ta'ala, the meaning of it is, there's no partner. Not his rububiyyatihi, wala fi uluhiyatihi, wala fi asma'ihi, wala fi sifatihi, wala fi dhatihi, wala fi af'alihi. That Allah has no partners, not in his rububiyyah, not in his uluhiyyah, not in his names and attributes, not even in his essence, nor in his actions, and not in his names after the idafa takes place. That's the reason why I said that. After the idafa takes place. هذا لا وجود له إلا للذهن. For there's no similarity and no partner for him, not in his name, rububiyyah, not in his uluhiyyah, not his asma wa sifat. Oh, leave it on asma. And also, likewise, I'll just mention asma wa sifat. And not in his essence, and not in his actions. He has no partner in that. Notice that, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, when Allah negates from himself something, he is always establishing the complete perfection of its opposite. Notice it says here, La sharika lahu. La sharika lahu. What is the meaning of La sharika lahu? Allah does not negate anything except that he's affirming the completeness of his opposite. What are we talking about? Allah does not negate any characteristic from himself, except that it is a characteristic that does not befit him. It's not befitting that he has a partner. It's not befitting. There's nothing befitting that he be associated as worship along with him. It's not befitting that he forgets. It's not befitting that he becomes tired or weary, or eat or drink, or sleep, or become weary or tired after creating. All these things Allah negates from himself. Why? In order to affirm the perfection of his opposite. Allah negates from himself joking and jesting in order to affirm another affair. All these things are negated from him in order to affirm the completeness of his opposite. As Ibn al-Qayyim and Shaykh al-Islam mentions in their books, and Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in Hadi al-Arwah, and other than them, that Allah Ta'ala does not negate from himself, except that he's doing by that negation, affirming the perfection of his opposite. Such as, for example, Allah Ta'ala negates from himself a partner, a female companion, children, and a one that gives him aid or help. He said, كل هذه الأشياء نفيت عن الله أو نفاها الله عن نفسه لأنها تتضمن كمال ربوبيته وألوهيته وقهره وغناه عن خلقه. So Allah negates from himself a partner. You guys should be writing this down. For verily these are called characteristics of as-salbiyah, as-sifat as-salbiyah. These are characteristics of what Allah negates from himself, because it doesn't befit the one who's worshipped and the one who's truly all-powerful. Allah negates from himself sleep. Allah negates from himself slumber, sleep, eating, drinking, having children, having a female companion, having a partner in his existence, having a deity of worship along with him, someone to aid him in his existence, to help him. Allah negates all of that from himself in order to complete and show the completeness of his opposite. So when Allah negates these affairs, when he negates from himself a partner or a female companion or a child or an aid or a helper, what he's trying to affirm, what he's affirming for himself is the complete opposite of his rububiyyah, of his absolute complete lordship, and his absolute complete affair of him being worshipped, and his domination, and his all perfect self-sufficiency and dependency from the creation. When Allah negates from himself a partner, or a female partner, or a female companion, or a child, or one who aids, or protect, or aid, Allah negates from himself all these affairs in order to affirm for himself his absolute perfect rububiyyah, his absolute perfect lordship, his absolute perfect establishment of him deserving to be worshipped, and his absolute perfect self-sufficiency and dependency from the creation. And also likewise his absolute perfect domination over the creation. For Allah Ta'ala negates all these affairs in the shortest of surah in the Quran. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. And I find this strange that people who truly don't know the meaning of this Surah Al-Ikhlas, you will never deviate from going back to being Christian if you really understood that. Anyway, another example of that, Allah Ta'ala negates from himself eating, drinking, in order to affirm for himself that his absolute perfect samadiyah, his absolute perfect samadiyah, and his absolute perfect self-sufficiency, independency, and his samadiyah. Meaning samadiyah means that the creation are in need of him, and he's not in need of the creation. That's from the meanings of samadiyah. And taswadu ilayha al-khalaiq inda hawa'ijihim. When Allah Ta'ala negates from himself absolute forgetfulness, that Allah Ta'ala negates from himself forgetfulness. Allah negates from himself forgetfulness. And he negates from himself heedlessness and inadvertence and not being in a state of acknowledgement of an affair. Allah negates that from himself. in order to affirm the opposite of that, which Allah has absolute, perfect, complete knowledge and awareness. So Allah negates from Himself عزوب الأشياء عن علمه وعن ينفي عن نفسه عزوب الأشياء عن علمه وينفي عن نفسه النسيان والغفلة لكي يثبت بذلك ضد كمالها للأمور ألا وهي إيش؟ كمال علمه وكمال خبرته تبارك وتعالى. Allah negates from Himself likewise. He negates from Himself forgetfulness. Allah never forgets. In His book, وَمَا كَانَ رَبُّكَ نَسِيًّا وَلَا يَعْزُبُ عَنْهُ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ. Allah says clearly in His book, nothing escapes Him of something of the atom's weight of anything in the heavens and the earth. In order to affirm the opposite of that, which is absolute what? Perfect knowledge and absolute perfect awareness of everything without any exception, no matter what it is. Allah negates from Himself all these affairs. And I'll even give an example for everyone. Allah even negates from Himself dhulm. He negates from Himself being unjust or oppression of anyone and anything. In order to affirm the opposite of it, which is absolute perfect what? Justice. Allah on the day of resurrection will not oppress anyone. To show that what? Tabaraka wa ta'ala is perfect, and when He's just, when He brings the rest of the creation to account. Tabaraka wa ta'ala. He will be absolute perfect just, be absolute perfectly just, Tabaraka wa ta'ala. Allah Tabaraka wa ta'ala also negates from Himself. For example, ash-shafa'a illa bi-idhnih. He negates from Himself the intercession except by His permission in order to affirm His absolute perfect Tawheed. And likewise, what you just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, His self-sufficiency and independency from the creation. As we know, we don't give tact to the affairs of the shafa'a. And also likewise, another example. Oh, we already just mentioned that. Allah Ta'ala likewise. He negates all these affairs from Himself in order to affirm the absolute perfect of what? Of the opposite of it. Last example. Allah negates from Himself death. He negates from Himself maut. He negates from Himself being tired or exhausted or weariness, which is a refutation against the Christians where they say that Allah created the heavens and the earth in how many days they say? 6, and then He rested. That's batil, that's falsehood. Allah negates that in His book. لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. Nothing takes Him of sleepiness or weariness or tired or exhaustion. That doesn't overtake Him because it doesn't befit the one who creates. Tabaraka wa ta'ala. Is it clear, everyone? In order to affirm the absolute opposite of that, which is absolute perfect hay or hayat and qayyumiyah. In order to affirm the opposite of that, which is absolute perfect life. Because there's no beginning to it nor ending to it. And it's absolute perfect qayyumiyah. His absolute perfect self-sufficiency where? And also, Him being all capable to the point where if He creates, nothing overtakes Him of weariness and tired and exhaustion and fatigue. Like these people say about Him, Tabaraka wa ta'ala. All these affairs have been negated in the Quran. Another example. Allah Tabaraka wa ta'ala negates from Himself la'ib, joking and jesting and creating just to play around and joke. They just creates with no reason. In order to affirm the opposite of that, which is what? Absolute perfect hikmah, wisdom. That everything He creates and everything He allows to happen has some wisdom behind it. In order to affirm the opposite of it, which is absolute perfect hikmah. When you learn these affairs of what we're discussing, now you gain a ma'rifah of Allah. And this is what will strengthen the iman of the people because we're building their foundation. So now you hear what I'm teaching now is building up your knowledge about your Lord, Tabaraka wa ta'ala. Which now will also aid in what? Rectifying the society and the communities. So you see how, what if Shaykh al-Islam said, nothing is considered perfect by just mere negation. You cannot say something is praiseworthy just by nafi, just by mere negation. He says, unless it contains of a affair called حتى يتضمن أمرا وجوديا وأمور ثبوتية. There's no way a thing could be complete unless you also come with something of affirmation to affirm the completeness of what you negated. That's considered something that is what? Praiseworthy. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Why Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah mentioned that? Why Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned that? As we'll talk about when we get into it, inshallah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to point at you. As we'll talk about, inshallah, that you'll find that the people of innovations, their so-called meaning of madh, of praise of Allah, is just mere negation. Until less to be kada, until less to be kada, until less to kada. You're not this, you don't have this, you don't have this, you don't have this. That's not praise. Like right now, even if a person that even if you was to come of someone of respect right now, let's just say, you someone who you highly to contain, you hold them in high esteem. You came to them, and he said, you said to them, you don't have, you're not a plumber, you're not a trash man worker, you're not poor, you don't clean up the streets. If a person said that to you right now, would you say that as that's praise? The only time you will say that it's praise unless they came with the order to what? Affirm the completeness of what you negated. You're all powerful. You're all wise. You're all this. You're all complete. You are. You are. You have all power. You have all domination. You have these characteristics. You're all smart. You're all aware. You encompass everything. You're all powerful. You're all once you hear that, that's praise. What you'll find from the people of Ahl Batil, you'll hear from their praise. If you go into their books, they're always saying, until lesta, you're not above the heavens, you're not onto the right, you're not to the left, you're not above, you're not below. That's why you'll find that that's considered istihza. That's considered mocking Allah. To the point where as if you made Allah like it's something that doesn't exist. Because that's the characteristic of something that don't exist. What is the characteristics and detail of something that doesn't exist? It's not above, it's not below, it's not to the right, it's not to the left. MashaAllah, you just gave the example of something that don't exist. And that's what you made Allah like. That's what you'll find from their so-called praise. You're not above, you're not below, you're not the right, not to the left. And like I said a moment ago, if you gave someone of respect and came to him and said that same thing to him, someone of respect, you're not to the above, you're not below, you're not to the side, you're not to the left. Are you joking with me? You understand what I'm saying, everyone? And that's what Sheikh Muhammad Aman al-Jami used to say in his recordings all the time. He said, this is the praise of Ahl Batil, the people from the deviant sects of the past. And even of today, they do the same type of praise. Allah is not above, Allah is not under, Allah is not to the right. That's not praise, that's istihza. You make a mockery of Allah. That's why you'll find that Ahl Sunnah with the correct aqeedah is perfect. Allah is all wise. Allah is all knowledgeable. Allah is above, domination, power, glory, might, majestic, power. That sounds what? Praise. To give the one who you deserve to be worshipped his due praise. Right or wrong? Able to do all things. Able to create. Able to bring life back to death. Able to bring death back to life. Able to do all, to the end of it. Praise. And when a person hears that, it goes along with his what? His natural disposition of human beings, so that makes absolute sense. That which causes confusion is the kalam of the people of Batil and false. Any rate, you're sidetracking me again. Any rate, going back to the book, as we said, Ya Ma'ash al-Ikhwa, when Allah Ta'ala says, La sharika lahu, there's no partner for him. Allah is negating that in order to affirm what we just said. When he says, La sharika lah, he has no partner, that's affirming that complete opposite of that. Meaning Allah is negating from himself or what? Partner. When Allah Ta'ala also negates from in Surah Al-Ikhlas, he does not give birth, nor was he born. Who was Allah refuting? Christians. Not only the Christians, it's also another people. Who? When Allah Ta'ala says, Lam yalid wa lam yulad, he did not give birth. Lam yalid, and wa lam yulad. Of course, he was not born. I'm going to add another detail. Allah Ta'ala says in his book, he did not take on any children. مَا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ مِنْ وَلَدٍ وَمَا كَانَ مَعَهُ مِنْ إِلَهٍ إِذَا لَذَهَبَ كُلُّ إِلَهٍ بِمَا خَلَقَ وَلَعَلَّ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ فَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ عَمَّا يُشْرِكُونَ عَالِمُ الْغَيْبِ وَالشَّهَادَةِ فَتَعَالَى عَمَّا يُشْرِكُونَ. One ayah where Allah Ta'ala says in his book, الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. So Allah negates from himself being born. Allah Ta'ala negates that he was born, and he negates having children in his book in the Quran in more than one place. Of course, in order to refute the Christians, refute that Allah was born, also refuting Farrakhan, because they believe from the nation of Islam that Allah was what? Born in the form of a man, whose father's name was Alfonso and the mother's name Baby G. And Farrakhan still to this day has not retracted it. Alfonso and Baby G gave born to what? A man named Fard Muhammad, who was Allah. Farrakhan, did you read the ayah? Allah says he wasn't born. Clearly. Lam yalid. What's walada yalidu mean in the Arabic language, brothers? To give birth. Allah says he wasn't born. Then it also says he was not. He did not give birth, nor was he what? Born. Both. He didn't give birth, nor was he born. Right? So that refutes Farrakhan is nonsense. Also the Christians, and also those who said that that the angels are the children, likewise, of Allah. Because they say they say that the angels are the daughters of Allah Ta'ala. They refuse those two. Allah puts so many refutations in his book against so many people. If you read and ponder on the ayah in the book of Allah, the Quran is filled with refutations against all these people. Allah is negating and laying down the truth in his book. And everything that we said makes absolute sense. Perfect all knowledge, all aware, all perfect wisdom, all domination, above the creation. All that makes sense. Man, that makes sense. Allah wasn't born. He didn't come in the form of a man. He has no children. Children necessitates the negation of ghina, which now comes in the characteristic what they call haja, a need. What Allah, we said self-sufficiency, ghani, it negates that. A person only has children in order to continue his lineage, on the earth. That's a need. That's why Allah negates it from himself. مَا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ مِنْ وَلَدٍ. Allah doesn't have any children. And he has no deity along with him. If that was the case, every God, if there was more than one God in this existence, one would try to fight and override the other. And they would try to go with their own kingdom in order to dominate the other. So Allah dominates and he lays down this truth. And if you listen to it, that's absolutely correct. Because if there was another deity, they'd be competing over what? What one this wants to create, which one wants to sustain, which one wants to do this, which one wants to do that, one wants to override that one wants to override that. Would make absolute sense. That's why Allah negates it. Which also shows that Allah has knowledge of even things that are impossible. All in the Quran. طيب. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negated from these affairs what's his absolute what? Partner of him. Having a partner, also having a female companion, children, and an aid. In order to affirm the absolute completeness of it, which is what everyone, you writing this down? The absolute completeness of it, it is his what? Rububiyyah. His uluhiyyah. Wa qahrihi. Wa ghinahu an khalqi. His absolute perfect rububiyyah. His absolute perfect uluhiyyah. His absolute perfect domination. And his absolute perfect self-sufficiency and independency from the creation. There's no person probably on the earth, even the kuffar, if they have leaving off their kibr and their arrogance, here's this to say that absolute makes sense. Right or wrong? Huh? Sound call you anything, huh? تفضل أمير تفضل أمير. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear? Is it clear? Is it not clear? Is it clear? The brother here just took shahada the other day. Brother here, right here, took. So brothers, don't forget, this brother here just took shahada. This brother here took shahada. Shaheed and Shakur. Shaheed and Shakur. So I kind of had to backtrack a bit and start from the beginning. Tafadal. Tafadal. They're called as-sifat as-salbiyya. Sal with a lam. Salbiyya. Salbiyya. As-sifat as-salbiyya. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. Tafadal. Tafadal, just wait for the adhan. Stop. I'll say wait for the adhan to stop. I guess you can stop it. You want to keep it going? I'll keep it going. Keep it going. حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. الله أكبر الله أكبر. رب هذه الدعوة التامة صلاة القائمة آت محمد رسول الفضيلة وبعث مقام. I think that was the other. There was another brother. The brother knew Shahada. Antoine. Oh, that's for the other brother. We talking about the other brother that took Shahada. That's for. Did they say who was for who? Yeah, but that's his name, Rashid, the brother, other brother? That was here last week. That's his. He said his name was Rashid? No, not from Brother Rashid. Who's it for? Did he get the name of the person who's supposed to get this to? Can you run out there and ask him, do he know his name? Run back here and tell me. Don't just go out there and just drive off. I think it's for, because there was another brother that took Shahada last week. Probably me and him. Antoine. Tafadal, Kashif. This is Surah Al-Ma'idah. قالت اليهود والنصارى نحن أبناء الله وأحباؤه قال فلما يعذبكم بذنوبكم بل أنتم بشر مما خلق يغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء. This is Surah Al-Ma'idah. لله ما في السماوات Surah Al-Ma'idah. Surah Al-Ma'idah. It's in the office. That's in the ayah. وقالت اليهود والنصارى نحن أبناء الله وأحباؤه قال فلما يعذبكم بذنوبكم بل أنتم بشر مما خلق. That's the ayah, Surah Al-Ma'idah. I get it on my phone. Yeah, it's a lot of ayat. He says, Allah says in his book, the Christians and the Jews say that we are the children of Allah and those who He loves. So Allah says, then why is He punishing you for your sins then? Rather, you're just mere men from which He created. He forgives who He wills and He punishes who He wills. Of course, that's a refutation against. The Quran is filled with refutations against falsehood. Filled. It's filled. The origin of refutation starts with the Quran itself. The Quran itself and the authentic Sunnah. When the Prophet ﷺ said, شَرَّ الْأُمُورِ مُحْدَثَاتُهَا, the most evilest of affairs are innovative ones, isn't that a refutation against bid'ah? Isn't that a refutation against bid'ah? When Allah Ta'ala says in His book, يَوْمَ تَبْيَضُّ وُجُوهُ وَيَسْوَدُّ وُجُوهُ يَوْمَ تَبْيَضُّ وُجُوهُ وَتَسْوَدُّ وُجُوهُ, the days when faces become white, when faces become black. And then Ibn Abbas had mentioned, it said the faces of Ahl Sunnah will become white and the faces of Al-Bid'ah will become black. Isn't that a refutation against bid'ah and His people? Huh? The Quran is filled with ayat. Any type of falsehood that the people tried to come with in order to reject the truth, Allah sent down an ayat establishing the truth and destroying their batil. There's not anything they tried to come with. That's an ayah. Allah said it Himself. وَمَا يَأْتُونَكَ بِمَثَلٍ إِلَّا جِئْنَاكَ بِالْحَقِّ وَأَحْسَنِ تَفْسِيرًا. There's not an example that they try to come with to cause confusion and for one to deny the truth, except we bring the truth and the best of explanation. What do you say? Huh? What is it again? I'm in the middle of the class. I'm here talking on the phone in the middle of class. Really? I just asked him. I'm in the middle of the class. I can't talk on the phone. Oh, that's Shakur. You're Shakur. Well, I guess probably for Shaheed then. It's probably for Shaheed. That is for him. He said Shakur. Exactly clear. Thought you found it? You found it yet? Here, I'll find it for you. Yeah, I'll give it to you. I don't know. Any other questions, brothers? Tafadal. Oh, I thought he was raising his hand. Any questions about the lesson? Tafadal. I was about to call Saad. Stuff it to be like Ja'far. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. You found it? What number is it? Surah Al-Ma'idah, right? Am I right? I didn't say recite the ayah. I just wanted to know what's the number of the ayah. 18. Jade. So you found it, huh? What does it say? Just the English. That's it. Surah Al-Ma'idah. See, that's it. Okay. Funny, yeah. Father Ja'far, what was you saying? He said, العواصف عواصف إذا لم تتقيد بالشرع. He said that emotions are storms. العواصف, if it's not restricted by the Shara', by the Kitaab and Sunnah. It says emotions are storms. Fadda. Anything that Allah negates, He's affirming the completeness of the opposite of what He negated. I'll give it to you after the class, because that's going to take some time. Anything else about the lesson? About the lesson, brothers? Father Ja'far. Oh, come on. What's about Hajj? Hajj? The third? About the Hajj? Halq al-Ras. Cutting of hair. Halq al-Ras. Shaving one's head. Shaving one's head. But that's not really called a hadiyah. That's more called a fidya. That's really for the person that during Hajj he has like a sickness. And you know that when he has a sickness to the point where he has to cut his hair. Not just skin cancer. There's other type of illnesses or ailments someone might have. There was one Sahabi of the Prophet ﷺ. He had it so bad, he was itching and it had like whiteness coming out of his head. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I never thought it would be that severe. And this is during the time of Hajj. It's the hadith of Ja'far. How long hadith in Hajj? It's a shame because years ago I went over that hadith with Sheikh Muhammad and man, I went over that whole book. Any read. Oh, it's sad. But any read. Says in that book, in that particular hadith about the man who was scratching his hair and all the basically white flakes started coming out of his. He said, I never thought that the sickness would reach this level. He says, cut your hair. Then you have to perform a fidya, or what they call cutting the hair. That's the third category. So when a person is sick, he had to cut his head. He had to do certain things, and he had to make hajj like that. But you know, cutting the hair while you're ihram, you can't do that. But because of this exception, because he's sick, he had to what? Cut. بقي دقيقة حتى نصلي المغرب بعد 3 دقائق نصلي بس ننهي الدرس بعدين نصلي المغرب طيب ما صلينا what was I saying? When a person cuts his hair during Hajj, he has a sickness. That's the third category. That's the second what they call hadaya, but hadiyah. Absolutely, he was sick. Because we know during ihram, you're not supposed to cut your hair. Not until after. After you either, after certain arkan during Hajj, or during Umrah. Of course, you can't cut your hair until after Umrah is over. Or during Hajj, after a certain day. You're not supposed to cut it. But certain people have ailments and sicknesses, they have to what? Cut it. Or do certain things that they're not supposed to do while in ihram. So they would cut their hair, but at the same time, they would have to what? Offer a sacrifice. In actuality, it's not called a hadaya, it's called a fidya. Fidya, that's the expiation for it. Fidyatun min siyamin aw sadaqatin aw nusuk, as it says in the ayah, in Surah Al-Hajj. Fidyatun min siyamin aw sadaqatin aw nusuk. ومن لم يجد فالصيام ثلاثة أيام في الحج ومن لم يستطع فالصيام ثلاثة أيام في الحج وسبعة إذا رجعتم تلك عشرة كاملة ذلك لمن يكون أهله حاضر مسجد الحرام. Anyway, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says in the ayah, that's the ayah, just remember. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says in the third part, which is the fidya, it says, the third part, he said, just meant that is a 3, for just the third category. If a person has a adha min ra'sihi, he has a type of harm from his head, he said, فَفِدْيَةٌ مِنْ صِيَامٍ أو صدقة أو نسك. This is a nusuk. Or nusuk. He said, فَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ. But if he's not able to offer that, he says, then what? He said, فَثَلَاثَةٌ فِي الْحَجِّ وَسَبَعَةٌ إِذَا رَجَعْتُمْ. 3 during the time of Hajj and 7 when he goes back. But anyway. So anyway, that's the third category. Allah Ta'ala called it fidya. But it's not a nusuk, but it's a fidya. If a person has to cut his hair during Hajj because of an ailment. So he has to cut his hair because of an ailment before the days of during Hajj where it's to perform Tawaf al-Ifadah. You guys got me talking about Hajj. Tawaf al-Ifadah. Or the day of Nahar where he just came back from Muzdalifah. He came back, of course he was on Yom Arafat, then he went to Muzdalifah, and it's the following day, or the day of the Eid, which on that day during Hajj is Yom al-Nahar. Let's just say he had to cut his hair because of the ailment, he'll have to perform that, basically, to sum it up. All right, so that's the third one. So as far as the second category for hadaya, it's number 1 is either what? Performing tamattu', or he falls in ihsar, or the third is when he has to cut his hair due to an ailment. Due to an ailment. And that's the 3. You guys got to talking about Hajj. Hajj. Hajj is for Hajj. Any other about Tawheed? Huh? That's it, Sheikh. Stop, we got to pray. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.